Hi, everyone. We haven't started yet. We're actually just waiting for everyone to log on slowly to the webinar. We're also streaming on Facebook Live, so we're just going to wait as people just log on to the webinar. So I'll probably start around 12:01, 12:02. So for those of you who are just logging on now, we have not started yet. We're just waiting a couple of minutes just for everyone to settle in. We're on Zoom and we're also live on Facebook as well. Please let me know as everyone is logging on if you're having any technical difficulties. I will be moderating the event. So if you're having any trouble with audio and video, just message me in the chat and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, so it's 12:02, so we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day and joining our webinar session. As I've said, my name is Sandra, and I'm going to help moderate the event. So if you have any technical difficulties, just please reach out to me in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to help you out there. We're also going to be taking questions at the end. So if you do have a question throughout the webinar, just please post it into the chat and I'll be moderating them. I'll answer anything that I can along the way. And then Eglys and Miranda will answer anything else that is at the end. So our two presenters for today are Eglys Perez. She is the Director of Recruiting at TorontoJobs.ca, and Miranda Nolan. She is also helps out Eglys with recruiting. She's the recruiting assistant. And today we're going to be talking about the best practices for hiring in 2022. So I think that's it from my end. So I'm just going to pass it on to our two presenters. I hope everyone enjoys the presentation, and again, let me know if there's any issues in the chat, and we'll be taking questions at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. So thank you for the introductions. So as Sandra mentioned, my name is Eglys, and I work with, of course, our recruitment division here at TorontoJobs.ca. Thank you for everybody who's attending and, who's participating in this. Overall, we know it's been a challenging year, actually, for recruitment and a lot of hiring managers. So we wanted to put together something that could hopefully give some insight, at least from a recruiter standpoint, to maybe some other recruiters or hiring managers to help with those challenges. And we hope that you enjoy this. I'll pass it over to Miranda to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm Miranda. I work with Toronto Jobs. I work with Eglys on the recruitment division as the recruiting assistant. I'm looking forward to today's presentation and helping everyone out with their questions at the end.
All right, so I'm trying to share my screen, Sandra. I'm not sure if you can help me with that. It's not letting me do it. There we go.
You got it now? Okay, perfect.
Yes, sorry guys. Okay, perfect. So can everyone see my screen? It should be there.
Yes.
All right, I would take that away. All right. Okay, excellent. So first thing, like I mentioned, is that we acknowledge that there's been a lot of challenges. So we want to give a few points and talk about these different points in how to attract staff, how to attract candidates, and then of course, get them on board. So hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat and we can address them as we go. So first point, of course, we're talking about employer branding, and this is a big topic. So, I know that this is a marketing thing and we can go on forever about this, but the reason why we made it our number one point is because it's more relevant than ever in the age of social media, in the age of internet. People more and more are researching your companies before they even apply. So it's really important that you, as a company, as an employer, do put some thought into your brand, into the way that you're portraying your culture. And a lot of the time, these are the things that candidates are looking for when they're selecting where to apply, right? And they're going out there, they're doing research, they're asking around, they're looking at reviews. All of those things are really going to impact the quality, but the number of applicants that you receive as well. I've personally had candidates tell me that they've rejected their application, right? Because they saw certain reviews online about a company. So, both positive and negative have impact, but we want to make sure that you're putting your self out there and your employer branding. Things that you can do, obviously, is marketing your culture, marketing, let's say, your flexibility that you're offering, any modernized workspace. Things that you can do also is just ask your employees to provide some reviews, right? A lot of people go on Glassdoor and then they'll give positive reviews about their employers. This all counts. This all makes a difference. So these are little things that you can think about. A lot of the time, job seekers, they are able to research products, they're able to research the services that you provide, but they're not able to research your work environment or your work culture. And this is something that's starting to change. This is something that's becoming more of a demand from job seekers. They want to know more about who you are as a company rather than what you do as a company. All right. And Miranda, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah. So our second point here is selling your company and the role itself. So this would start with the job ad that you post, and then it will continue throughout the entire interviewing and onboarding process. You want to be able to, implement different strategies, of course. One strategy is introducing the candidates to the employees and letting your employees sell the role, sell the company, let them know what it's really like to work at your company. You could show off how you're keeping up with the times, with technology, flexibility within the company, possibly working from home or a hybrid situation, showing off how you're keeping up with the times. And then, of course, there's other different ways. So having a transparent plan for growth. So letting your candidates see what's going on within the company and celebrating promotions on social media. When your employees get congratulated, and others can appeal to others as well. You can talk about mentorship programs, training programs, workshops within the company that you offer. Another strategy would be introducing candidates to the team early on. This can be the difference between them picking your company over another company.
Wonderful. I want to add just to that point that if you haven't started using social media, such as LinkedIn, for example, of course, to congratulate, to celebrate work anniversaries, all those really do appeal to candidates and job seekers and people who are kind of peeking into your company to see what's going on. So it's something that I highly recommend. Just being a little bit more public about the positive things in your company and the attribute to your culture, that really sells a role. I've had candidates personally say, I actually applied to this company because I saw so much stuff, so many positive things going on their social media page. And it seems like there's a lot of people who are interacting with them and they seem quite active in the community. So there's a lot of ways that you can put yourself out there, and it really helps to kind of sell your company or your role. So the next thing we want to talk about is to get outside of the box. And this has been a big challenge, I think, for a lot of people. I know for small to mid-sized companies that don't necessarily have that giant budget, that the big corporations do. They're saying, well, what can we do different, but not break our budget? So one thing I'll say is, doesn't necessarily have to be with external things. It could start with internal. For example, just the way that you're recruiting. So first thing I'll say is, try to get outside of the ambition of looking for the perfect resume. Of course, you may find the perfect resume, and that's wonderful. But a lot of the time, especially nowadays with COVID having interrupted a lot of people's lives, you may not find that perfect resume. You may find people having more gaps in their resume. There's maybe they had to take 2 part-time positions because their last position was reduced during the pandemic. There's all kinds of stories now, and I think that we have to be in touch with that and open ourselves up to different stories and different types of resumes nowadays, rather than before in a different market, you could have just expected that perfect resume or profile. The other thing I'd add to that is really just open yourself up to candidates that are maybe outside of your, your local demographic. Perhaps there's ability to work from home. Perhaps you can open up to candidates that are not right in Toronto. Maybe they're outside Toronto. Maybe they're okay to relocate, or maybe they can work from home. Nowadays, you're seeing more and more employers open up their candidate pool to even overseas candidates. So it really depends, of course, on your specific situation and your capacity to do so, but it's definitely a tip that you could consider. Other thing is, don't rely on just typical recruitment methods. So if you're still posting and praying, then I'm sorry to say those days are over. As a recruiter, we know how challenging it is to just find quality candidates. So really, it can't just be about job boards anymore. Obviously, job boards are a great thing to still have, but it has to be in addition to other resources that you reach out to. So essentially, you could obviously use recruiters. You can do a lot of networking on social media, attend some perhaps career fairs, or approach colleges. Also, there's a lot of different technology out there. So one thing that we've actually been a part of and we've been really excited about is Gahuza.com, if you haven't heard of it. And it's just a new platform where there's actually live interviewing taking place every day. So you could, post your position, and the technology will actually match up candidates, and you have the ability to interview them live on the spot as they're being matched. So, there's different things that you can do, but again, those days of posting and praying are definitely long gone. So my biggest suggestion is to be as creative as possible and get outside of the box. The other thing I would add to that, if you do get to attract candidates, is be creative with your offers. I know a lot of people will say, well, everyone knows salary demands have gone up, and the market's, of course, changing day to day. But it's not always about salary. So if you are a small to mid-sized company and you're not really sure how to compete or how to be creative with your offers, there's other things that you can provide. We talked about flexibility, which I know has been a redundant word throughout this year, but it's still very relevant. We've talked about also, thought about also salary, but vacation. So I know companies are starting to offer more vacation time, and that's appealing a lot to candidates because it promotes work-life balance. It's just another indicator that companies are willing to invest, even though it may not be, compensation or money, but it is actually time that they're able to take for themselves or for their family. So there's all these other things that you can do and try and be creative and thinking outside the box.
Okay, yep. Thank you, Eglys. So our fourth point here is talking about revamping your interview method and style. So, one of the top factors that retains employees is the company's culture. And candidates will be looking for, looking to feel out your company's culture within their first interview. So that really sets the tone of what kind of company culture you're going to present within, the very beginning and throughout the rest of the onboarding process. So one tip would be to not make the interview too formal. You can prepare for office tours if possible, taking them around the office so they can see what kind of, vibes that the company would give off, and even virtual ones. And then Eglys did mention thinking of new ways to recruit. Of course, I'll just mention it again. So you can check out Gahuza, which is interviewing live. So, on the spot interviewing, which is a very new, innovative way, which would be changing the way that, your typical recruiting and interview styles would be. So, yeah, I'll pass it back to you, please.
Thank you. I will add to this point, just in terms of making interviews less formal. Again, it's, depending on your style, but again, from a recruiter's point of view, we do get the opportunity to hear from candidates who interview. And a lot of the time, candidates can be put off if they feel the interview is too formal or too rigid, and they are not they feel that they're not really getting to feel or getting to know the people they're interviewing, right? I mean, if you're going to work with somebody day in and out, you would hope that you're going to connect on a personal level, or there's some chemistry, and sometimes formality or too much formality can limit that. So that's some feedback that we've received from candidates, and something perhaps for employers to keep in mind as well. All right, and our fifth point is really just to be competitive and by continuously adapting. So some of the points that I know we've talked about, but again, I think that they're just very, very relevant in today's market, is flexibility. What does that mean? It means something different to different people, but the most common things that are coming up with this word are obviously ability to work from home or flex hours, right? If someone has to drop off their children in the morning, are you able to accommodate them, giving them that time, and then they can just end work a little bit later? Or is there the ability to take work home so they don't feel overstressed or overpressured to stay in the office if they have other appointments to make or whatnot? So I think flexibility is a big word. It's become the new word these days. And again, it can mean different things, but you kind of think, how can we keep up with this word? How can we accommodate, but not sacrifice everything, of course, but accommodate or compromise? The other thing is mental health and wellness. So obviously more than ever after the pandemic or during the pandemic, mental health has been a forefront, and just health in general has been a forefront for everybody. So what are you doing as an employer to show that you are investing in mental health and wellness? Are there certain programs? Are there certain designated times of the week or month that you can contribute or designate for this specific cause? Maybe your benefits need to be looked at, and perhaps there's ways that you can integrate some new benefits in each of employees' program. Or package, I should say. So there's different ways, again, but it's really up to you individually. Like, how are you going to contribute to invest in your employees' mental health and wellness? The other thing that we're seeing more and more of is signing bonuses. I've had several situations where we've had competing offers and our candidate is deciding on which one. And at the end of the day, one of the employers comes out with a signing bonus and that seals the deal. So something to consider. It doesn't have to be tons of money, but I think, for a lot of people, it's the dollars do speak. And also it's just a commitment, right? To say that we are very interested, we are committing, and we are competitive. So something to think about. Relocation bonuses as well can be quite common nowadays, especially when people are seeking candidates abroad or seeking candidates outside of their city. So something to think about is, can we ask someone from British Columbia to move here for the right position, and how much could we allocate if there was a relocation bonus? And also, we talked about it earlier, but more paid vacation. So again, these are things that really do mean a lot to people, and doesn't necessarily have a huge impact. It may or may not, but the bigger the company, obviously doesn't have a big impact on your workload. So it could be vacation time, it could be Christmas time, so it could be designated vacation time, but overall, it's something to think about. Also, I mentioned earlier, is updating benefit plans, right? So something that a lot of companies don't do is taking a look at their existing benefit plan, and seeing how can they update it? How can they, what things can they add or change in order to appeal to a new generation, or stay in time, in tune with the times. And then the last point I would say is just be realistic with your plans for growth. So if you're going to develop some growth plans internally and share that with new candidates during the interviewing process, make sure that they're already in place. The last thing you want to do is, share a lot of plans, but then the processes aren't in place to support them. So we want to make sure that you're being competitive, not just by the offers, but also with your training, your onboarding, and your growth plans internally. All right. Thank you very much. So I'm going to open it up. I think we may have some questions here. Sandra, I know you're going to be in charge of that. So we'll go ahead and open up to questions.
Yes, we do have a couple in the Q&A box here. So our first question is, you had mentioned earlier in the webinar about some difficulties that the recruiting industry has had over the last year. Could you maybe talk about some of those difficulties, like what recruiters have been struggling with?
Of course. Yeah, I think a lot of people here will understand the common struggles. I think a lot of it has been just finding candidates. There's been a shortage of supply to the demand that we have as companies. And also, I think a lot of people are starting to see ghosting, if people understand what I'm saying, is people just not showing up to interviews. And then on top of that is the competitiveness when you do find a candidate, right? So I think there's three things: is just how hard it is to find good candidates, and then also how hard it is to get those candidates on board because of competition. Often than not, we're coming across multiple offer situations or counter offer situations with their current employer. One thing that we've really started asking in the last year as recruiters is asking candidates in the primary screening is if they would stay with their employer, or if there's anything that their employer would say or do to make them stay. Because though they often don't think about this ahead of time, once you put the idea in their mind, then there may be some things, after all, that their employers could do to make them stay. And we want to avoid that last minute. We want to avoid getting to the offer stage, everyone being excited, and then all of a sudden their current employer has a counter offer that succeeds. So we want to get all of that out on the table, and we're just starting to see that a lot more and more.
So you had mentioned ghosting. If you can maybe talk a little bit about that and recruiters experiencing ghosting.
Yeah, ghosting is a big deal nowadays. It's a big problem. We're seeing more and more people are agreeing to interviews and then just not showing up. So it's a big problem for a lot of recruiters and a lot of hiring managers. I would say, again, as a recruiter, we're always trying to find ways to prevent these from happening. You do your best. So you obviously try to confirm, you try to engage ahead of the interview and confirm maybe more than once ahead of the interview. But ultimately, there's only so much you can do, right? It really just is a reflection of the market and what we're going through right now. And again, that the fact that candidates do have options and they feel entitled to, that they're okay to ghost. One thing I will say, I know we've talked about, and I don't want to over pitch, but Gahuza is something that Toronto Jobs has partnered with, and the idea is that you don't ever have to get ghosted, because on Gahuza, it's live interviewing. There's no pre-planning. So it's something that you might want to try out if you're really having challenges with ghosting and candidates not showing up.
And then I guess, would you be able to talk about maybe what is up ahead in the new year for recruiters? I guess the difficulties, are they just going to continue and stay within 2023, or is it going to change a little bit? I don't, if you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I'll do my best to answer that. I'm obviously not an economist, and a lot of it will have to do with what's happening in the economy. Everyone, I'm sure, knows that there's a lot of talks of a recession coming, or if it's already here, and there's debate on that. But really, what we anticipate is that the market is going to shift. Whether that impacts every single industry or field, I'm not sure of that, right? I know that the tech field has been really impacted recently, and there's already been some layoffs in technology, but I know that there's also a lot of other industries that have not had that and are still facing challenges in finding people, and they need people to keep up with their demands. So it's going to be interesting. It's hard to say where we're going to be in 6 months or a year from now. Do I think it's going to look a little different? Yes, but I do still think that there's going to be some challenges with recruitment. I do still think so. I think that this still, some of the tips we gave today will still be quite relevant for a lot of industries and a lot of hiring managers, even in 6 months from now.
Okay, and the final question for today is just in regards to small and medium-sized businesses. I guess, is there anything more specific to them that you can, give advice for in terms of helping them with recruiting? Just something specific for small to medium-sized businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know that's a big challenge, and I alluded to it earlier, and just saying it again, it doesn't have to all be about money. It doesn't all have to be about salary, for example, or compensation. There's a lot of things that candidates are looking for that a small business can offer. And as a recruiter, one of the questions I always asking myself is, who is this job perfect for? And sometimes small companies are perfect for a specific type of person, right? Or a person that's, perhaps looking to get their feet wet in all kinds of things, where in big companies, they're segmented into a specific division. So there's a lot of different things that small and to mid-sized companies can offer that a big company can't. The other thing I would say is flexibility, vacation, benefits, culture, that branding, all of that really is going to elevate your competitiveness. It doesn't have to be about salary, but all those other things, should be, it should be forefront for you when you're talking about recruiting, for sure.
Okay, is there anything else that either of you would like to add in regards to hiring, best practices for hiring? I know we covered a lot of topics. Yeah. So if there's just anything in addition, just before we have a minute left, so just before we close out.
Yeah, no, I wish everyone luck. I know that it's a grind, and we're always here to help. We know that it's been challenging in last year, even more than that, but I think things will start turning around. I'm very optimistic about where things are going with the market in terms of recruitment. And I think just getting out there, getting to know all the different technologies and networking and, just really putting yourself out there as a company. I think that's what we need to see more of.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I am recording the webinar, so I will be sending that link to everyone as well in case they want to go back and look at certain parts of the webinar. But other than that, thank you everyone for your time today, and I hope everyone learned a lot. So it was a lot of, we covered a lot today, so.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.